Hey everyone, welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're going to tackle something that's probably been on your mind a lot lately.
Oh, yeah.
Homeownership affordability in the U.S.
hmm
We found this really interesting economic bulletin from the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City.
Okay.
And it's called First-Time Homeownership Became Less Affordable Across Most of the United States in Recent Years.
Flashy title.
It is. So we're going to unpack that today and see what we can learn about the trends impacting first-time homebuyers.
Sounds good.
All right. So the report comes right out and says homeownership has become less affordable across most of the U.S. over the last 5 years.
Yeah, and I think if you've been, even glancing at the housing market, you probably aren't that surprised.
Right. Not a huge shock. But what's cool about this report is it goes beyond just stating the obvious and digs into the why behind it all.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And it also uses some really good visuals to show how much things have actually changed.
I know. Map 1 is crazy.
Uh-huh.
It's like a heat map of the U.S., and it shows all these counties turning blue between 2018, 2019, and 2024.
Yeah, and blue means unaffordable.
Right, like the average person would have to spend a huge chunk of their income just on housing.
Like a third or more.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. And it's not just a few areas here and there.
No, it's like the whole country.
Yeah, the western U.S. coastal markets, even parts of the southeast are all getting hit.
And even the central U.S., which has always been more affordable, historically.
Right.
Even there, we're seeing those counties turning blue.
It's like watching this wave of unaffordability just kind of wash over the map.
Yeah, good analogy.
Yeah.
So to really get why this is happening, we need to think about what's causing it.
Okay, so is it one big thing or a bunch of things all coming together at once?
Well, the report says there are two main culprits,
Hmm.
rising house prices and those higher borrowing costs.
Ah, interest rates.
Interest rates, yeah.
Okay, well, let's break those down then. First, those skyrocketing house prices. I mean, we all saw how crazy things got during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
Increased demand, bidding wars, prices going way up.
It was a frenzy.
It was insane. And the report says that even after that initial surge, house prices have continued to outpace income growth.
Yeah, so it makes it even harder to keep up, especially if you're trying to enter the market.
So even if you got a raise,
Yeah,
you're not really gaining any ground when it comes to buying a home.
right. And chart 2 from the report shows that gap widening, like the gap between house prices and income growth.
Okay, so we have rising prices making things tough. And then just to make it worse, we got hit with those interest rate hikes.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about adding insult to injury.
It really was a double whammy. And the report shows how those rate increases in 2022 really just made the affordability problem even worse.
Yeah.
Now, rates have leveled off a bit recently,
Okay.
but the impact of those hikes, it's still being felt.
It's like getting hit with a 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
First, those rising prices knock you back, and then the interest rates come in and just finish the job.
Oof.
So is this happening everywhere? Or are there some places where it's not so bad?
Hmm.
Like, are cities getting hit harder than rural areas?
That's a really good question. And the report actually compares affordability in metro areas versus non-metro areas.
Okay.
And what it shows is that both types of areas have become less affordable.
Okay.
But the gap between them has actually widened.
So even if things are getting tougher everywhere, it's even more pronounced in those densely populated areas.
Yeah, exactly. And it shows that metro areas are feeling the squeeze even more acutely.
Okay.
So the median share of income spent on homes in metro counties jumped from 23% in 2018-2019 to 33% in 2024.
Wow, 33%. That's like over a third of your income just going to housing.
A lot.
That's tough. What about those non-metro areas?
Well, for non-metro counties, the median share of income spent on homes went from 19% to 26%.
Okay, so it's still a big jump,
Yeah, significant.
but it's not as bad as in the cities.
Right. It shows that it really does depend on where you live.
So if you're looking to buy a home, location is more important than ever.
Yeah, I think so.
So it sounds like things have been pretty rough for aspiring homeowners over the past few years,
Yeah.
especially in those metro areas.
Yeah.
But is there any good news? Is there any light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, the report does offer a little bit of hope.
Okay, I'm listening.
It suggests that while affordability is still a big problem, things might be easing up just a little bit.
Really?
Okay.
Tell me more about this glimmer of hope.
Well, there are a couple of things. First, house price gains have started to slow down.
Okay.
They're not plummeting or anything,
Right.
but the pace of increases is not as crazy as it was.
Okay.
And on the flip side, wages have been steadily rising.
So that's good.
So that's a positive sign.
So it's like the treadmill is slowing down a bit and maybe you're getting a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I like that. And if these trends continue, it could help to balance out some of the affordability challenges we've been talking about.
Okay.
But, it might take a while for these things to really make a difference and bring affordability back to what it was a few years ago.
Right. So it's not an instant fix,
No.
but there are some signs that things might be moving in a more balanced direction.
Yeah.
And that's got to be encouraging for people who are still hoping to become homeowners.
Absolutely. It's not an impossible dream.
Right.
It just might take a little more patience, a little more saving,
Yeah.
and maybe some creative thinking about location and the type of home you're looking for.
Okay. Thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
So what about you? Are you thinking more city life, or are you open to those non-metro areas where things might be a little bit more affordable?
That is a good question. And it's one we're going to keep thinking about as we dive deeper into the nuances of affordability.
All right. So stay tuned for part 2.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
So we talked about how affordability is changing across the U.S.
Right.
But what I'm really curious about is what people are doing about it.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any cool new solutions or strategies emerging that can actually make a difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there are some pretty exciting things happening. One area that's really taking off is innovation in housing design and construction. With affordability being such a big deal, people are getting creative with more cost-effective ways to build and, different ways of living.
So tiny houses
Yeah.
or those modular homes you can kind of snap together.
Exactly.
Or even those co-living spaces.
Yeah, are people starting to challenge the idea that everyone needs a big detached house?
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And those options can be a game changer for first-time buyers.
Yeah.
Especially in those expensive areas where land costs are so high.
Sure.
And we're also seeing this resurgence in multi-generational living.
Yeah.
Where families team up to share the costs and build wealth together.
Like going back to the future.
Yeah, totally. It's like back in the day when extended families often lived together.
Yeah. So we've got design innovations and families teaming up. What about technology? Can tech help solve this affordability puzzle?
Well, technology is a wild card for sure.
Yeah.
But it has huge potential to change things.
Okay.
We're already seeing those fintech companies making the whole mortgage process way simpler and more transparent. Less paperwork and more personalized loan options. That could be a win for a lot of people.
It's like bringing the mortgage process into the 21st century.
Exactly. No more mountains of paperwork and confusing jargon.
Yeah.
But technology can do more than just help with financing. It can make the homes themselves more affordable, too.
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, think about all that smart home tech that can help you save on energy bills.
Yeah.
Being more efficient. That can make a real difference in your monthly expenses.
That's a good point. And it kind of ties into that whole sustainability movement.
Yeah, absolutely. Sustainability and affordability can totally go hand in hand.
Okay. So we've talked design tech. What about government policies? Can policymakers actually do anything to help make homeownership more accessible?
Well, that's a big piece of the puzzle. And there are a lot of policy levers that could make a difference.
Okay.
One idea that's getting traction is increasing the supply of affordable housing.
Right.
So, things like zoning reform. Or maybe incentives for developers to build more mixed-income housing.
Right. More supply means lower prices in theory.
Exactly. And then there's the financing side.
Okay.
Policies that help make loans more accessible, especially for first-time buyers. Things like down payment assistance programs
Right.
or special mortgage products designed for different situations.
So those all sound like good steps.
Yeah.
But those policy changes can take a while, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So what can someone who wants to buy a home do now to improve their chances?
That's the million-dollar question. And, there's no magic formula,
Right.
but there are some smart things you can do to set yourself up for success.
Okay.
And it all starts with getting your finances in order. Building up that down payment is super important, even if it means, making some tough choices.
Yeah.
Maybe cutting back on some things.
Budgeting. Picking up a side hustle.
Exactly. It's all about that delayed gratification.
Yeah.
But it's not just saving. You also need to understand your credit score and take steps to improve it.
Right.
A good credit score can get you better interest rates, and that can save you so much money over time.
So basically you're saying no more burying your head in the sand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Take charge of your finances and be proactive.
Okay. I can do that. Now I'm curious about something.
Yeah.
We talked about the gap between metro and non-metro affordability. You said it's getting wider. You think that's going to continue?
That's a tough one. It really depends on a bunch of factors.
Okay.
Like, will remote work become the norm?
Right.
How will infrastructure develop?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have things like climate change and migration patterns.
Yeah.
It's a complicated web of interconnected stuff.
So a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's something to keep in mind if you're thinking about leaving the big cities to find a cheaper home.
Yeah. You have to weigh the pros and cons and figure out what's right for your own situation.
Okay.
But here's something really important.
Okay.
We've been talking about affordability in terms of money, but there's a whole other side to it, the personal side.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Right.
Tell me more about this personal side of affordability.
Well, when we talk about housing, we're not just talking about buildings. We're talking about homes, communities, places where you build a life.
Right.
Maybe you raise a family.
Yeah.
So affordability isn't just about making that monthly payment.
Okay.
It's about having access to good schools, feeling safe in your neighborhood,
Okay.
and having opportunities to grow.
That's a great point. It's not just about owning any house.
Right.
It's about finding a place where you and your family can thrive.
Exactly. And that can be hard when affordability limits your choices.
Yeah, for sure.
And this brings us to like the bigger picture.
Okay.
The impact this all has on society as a whole.
Right.
When homeownership is out of reach for so many people, it can make inequality even worse.
Yeah.
Make it harder to move up in life.
Right.
And it can even hurt the economy.
So it's like a chain reaction.
Exactly. One problem leads to another, and it impacts everyone in some way.
Yeah, for sure. But that also means that we need to work together to find solutions.
Right.
It's not just an individual problem.
Yeah. It's something we need to tackle as a society.
Yeah.
We have to think about homeownership not just in terms of individual success,
Okay.
but also in terms of creating strong communities where everyone has a chance to do well.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a powerful message. And I think it's a perfect way to transition to our final part.
Yeah, for sure. In part 3, we'll dig into those long-term effects of this whole affordability crisis.
Okay.
And talk about what we can all do to build a more equitable future for everyone.
All right. Sounds good. So we've talked about all these challenges with affordability, but I'm thinking about the future. Like, what happens if entire generations are priced out of owning a home?
That's a question a lot of people are asking, and economists and sociologists are trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
One of the biggest worries is that it could make wealth inequality a lot worse.
Right, because for a lot of people, owning a home is how they build wealth over time.
Exactly. It's like you have this asset that hopefully goes up in value. You're paying down the mortgage. You build equity.
Yeah.
It's a foundation for your financial future.
Right.
But if less and less people can afford to buy that path to building wealth, gets smaller and smaller.
So it creates an even bigger gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Exactly. And that can impact other parts of life, like education and healthcare.
Right. It's not just about having a roof over your head.
No, it's not.
It's about opportunity.
Exactly. And that leads to another worry. Less social mobility.
Okay.
If only wealthy people can buy homes, then it's way harder to move up in life.
It's like some people are starting the race a mile ahead.
Yeah, and that can lead to a lot of frustration and resentment.
Right. It just doesn't seem fair.
Exactly. And that can be really bad for society as a whole.
Okay, well, that's a pretty depressing thought.
Yeah.
But is there anything we can do to avoid that future?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because there are things we can do. It won't be easy.
Okay. And it'll take work from everyone. The government, businesses, individuals.
So everyone has to do their part.
Exactly. Like we're all on the same team trying to solve this thing.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what can the government do?
Well, one of the biggest things is figuring out how to increase the supply of affordable housing.
Okay.
We could try things like zoning reform to make it easier to build more homes or offer incentives for developers to build more mixed-income housing.
To just basically creating more options.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And what about those financial tools we talked about?
Oh, yeah. Like those down payment assistance programs.
Right.
Or creating new types of mortgages that are easier to get.
Yeah. Could those help?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Making it easier to get financing is huge.
Right.
Especially for first-time buyers or people with lower incomes.
Right.
It's about making sure everyone has a shot at buying a home.
Okay. So that's the government's role. What about businesses and innovators?
Well, we're already seeing those innovations in construction technology and modular housing, which can make building cheaper.
And we talked about those technologies that make homes more energy efficient so people save money on their bills.
Yeah, that's great.
But beyond that, there's a lot of room for innovation in how we think about owning a home.
Okay.
We might see more rent-to-own programs or shared equity models.
So just new ways to make homeownership possible for more people.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, so we've got the government and businesses. What about us regular people? What can we do?
Well, a lot of it comes back to planning and being smart with your money.
Mm-hmm.
Saving for a down payment, improving your credit score, being thoughtful about where you want to live.
So do your research and ask for help if you need it.
Exactly. And remember that education is key. The more you know about buying a home, the better.
Knowledge is power, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But you also said that buying a home isn't just a financial transaction.
Yeah, it's a personal decision. Don't let all this stuff discourage you from your dream.
I love that.
Yeah.
So even though it's tough, home ownership is still possible.
For sure.
It just takes work and planning.
The path might be longer and have more twists and turns, but it's worth it.
Awesome. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into homeownership affordability.
Yeah, we covered a lot.
But the conversation doesn't end here.
No, it doesn't. Keep thinking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Talk to your friends and family. Get involved in your community.
Right. Let's all work together to make the housing market work for everyone.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one, where we'll tackle another interesting topic.
Sounds good.
Until then, keep those thinking caps on and keep diving deep.